So Takara strikes again. They've just been giving us all kinds of iPad info recently, but today we have some information on the supposed iPhone SE Plus. Now, of course, the iPhone SE Plus isn't a new concept. We've heard rumors about this for a while. In fact, I've made a video about this topic before, which you can check out in the icon above. But essentially, Min-Chi Kuo a while back told us that the iPhone SE Plus should launch in the second half of 2021. But this new report from Takara claims we could see the iPhone SE Plus as soon as April, which suggests to me that maybe we could see this launch at the virtual March event alongside the new Apple TV and the new iPads. So of course, without further ado, let's just delve into this, so make sure to like and subscribe, click that bell notification for the latest Apple news and rumors, and with that being said, let's just tuck in. So there's something weird about this story from Takara, and that is they mention nothing else about this iPhone SE apart from a potential release date. So yes, they pretty much come out and say, hey, expect the iPhone SE Plus in April. We don't know anything else, we just know it'll come out in April. That's all we know. That's just really odd to me, because Takara, when I've reported on them in the past, they mention really fine and specific details about these future products that leads me to believe that the information is accurate. But because of the lack of detail in this report, I am inclined to believe that there is a possibility, a higher chance, that this could be false info. Also keep in mind that the iPhone SE line rarely gets updated by Apple. For example, we saw the original 2016 SE, and then it took us 4 years to get the 2020 model. So roughly, we're getting one SE model per 4 years, and so 2021 is clearly sooner than the 4-year cycle that we've come to know in the past. But a part of me does realize that Apple's a different company now. Their business model has changed, it's become a heavy focus on services, and so they are willing to make their hardware more accessible if it means they can get more people on board with their services. I mean, a rumor a few days ago suggested we could see Podcast Plus, we could see Stocks Plus, and on top of that, we can see Mail Plus. How is Apple making a subscription service out of a mail app? I have no clue, but clearly Apple is going all in with this services model, and so they want to make their hardware more accessible and make the accessible hardware more appealing, and so offering more options at lower prices. That might be the best way to get more people paying monthly for all these, well, great-ish services. Anyways, coming back to this iPhone SE, I think there are two clear routes Apple can take with this model, two clear directions they can go in. So of course, Apple tends to go with the laziest and cheapest way when it comes to their lower priced models, and so one can expect this iPhone SE Plus to literally just be a bigger version of the SE. And so what I mean by that is, of course, Apple just reuses the iPhone 8 Plus's design and of course gives it the spec update like it did with the original SE. So yes, the design we've had since 2014 is going to be in a new phone in 2021. That's not really that great. But of course, we have had evidence of an SE Plus in the past in this way, because of course, John Pross has mentioned that the iPhone SE was supposed to come in two sizes, a 4.7-inch and 5.5-inch model to replace the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, but because of, I'm assuming, the pandemic and supply restrictions, Apple decided to just release one version of the SE, which is of course the 4.7-inch model that we all love and know. But in the past, there has been plenty of code suggesting that Apple has been working on a plus-sized version of the iPhone SE, and so I guess this does seem very plausible. But you see, I'm not too sure when it comes to an iPhone SE Plus like this in terms of pricing, because you see, it is very unlikely that Apple reduces the price of the iPhone SE and makes it $299 and makes this SE Plus $399. That would be an amazing deal, but I just don't see Apple going that low for a new iPhone. Instead, what seems more likely is, of course, Apple keeps the same $399 starting price for the SE, and of course charges $100 extra for the iPhone SE Plus. But the issue there is, of course, the SE Plus will be $499, and we have the iPhone XR at $499 currently in the lineup, and guys, come on, apart from the A12 chip, the XR is without a doubt the better phone. For example, you have a modern design, you have Face ID, you have a bigger display, you have colors, you possibly have a better camera, and better battery life. So overall, unless you absolutely need the home button, the iPhone XR is the better buy. And so I just don't see Apple replacing the XR with an inferior product. Now, yes, it is possible that Apple wants to differentiate the lineup, and possibly their reasoning is, hey, the XR and the 11 are very similar, and so getting rid of one and replacing it with an iPhone 8 Plus style device means that the lineup has some differentiation, and now you have a clear distinction with the home button iPhones being the cheap option, the LCD Face ID iPhone being the mid-tier option, and of course the OLED iPhones being the premium tier. But ultimately, I don't see that happening because the iPhone SE is still one of Apple's best sellers, and of course, as I said, Apple's whole model is to get as many people on their services, and so to offer a worse product at the same price, that's going to put off so many consumers, and so that would be a bad move in my opinion. And so the second move, which I think is slightly more out there, but Apple could be releasing an iPhone XR style device with Touch ID. So Min Chi Kuo told us about this a few months ago, but essentially he was claiming that an iPhone XR style device between 5.5 inches to 6.1 inches could come out with Touch ID integrated into the power button like the iPad Air. And specifically because of this, it would lack Face ID, and so it could come with a smaller notch. Now, while I do think the smaller notch is quite unlikely, I feel this report does have some sense to it. Because of course, like I mentioned, the iPhone XR and the 11 are very, very similar in the lineup, and so potentially this SE Plus could replace both of those and kind of offer the benefits of the XR and the 11 right now, which of course is that 6.1 inch display, it's that modern design, but also have some cons like Touch ID instead of Face ID that incentivizes people to buy the premium models. Now, interestingly, display analyst Ross Young does tell us we should expect this in 2022, and weirdly enough, this does make a lot of sense to me. Because you see, if this is going to have Touch ID, I think it is very, very likely that the premium models also need to have Touch ID in the power button or maybe under the display, and so that means we need the 2021 iPhones. And so announcing this in April before the iPhone 13s, and while we have the iPhone 12s with Face ID, which is pretty terrible when outside, of course, that will not work in Apple's favor because people start buying the cheaper SE Plus instead of the 12 and 12 Pro. And so a device like this having Touch ID makes a lot of sense when Apple brings Touch ID to the more premium phones, because of course, you'll have the combination of Face ID and Touch ID on the more premium phones, but of course, this will only come with Touch ID, which some people might not like and could be a considerable disadvantage. And so yes, because of the lack of information from Makatakara, I think their reports might be a little off. They do have an accuracy of 68% after all, so definitely take their information with a pinch of salt. But because Min Chi Kuo said second half of 2021 and Ross Young says 2022, I think that seems more reasonable, especially after the launch of the iPhone 13s. Also, logistically, this makes a lot of sense because Apple will continue to build the iPhone XR in 2022, and so they can utilize those parts they built for their XR towards this 2022 iPhone SE, whereas of course the iPhone 8 Plus hasn't been manufactured since last year, and so it doesn't really make a lot of sense for Apple to restart making that design again when they've just stopped. And of course, this move will really simplify the lineup because right now it feels a little cluttered. We have so many iPhones and so many options, which could be confusing to some. And so again, like I said, combining the XR and the 11 into this SE Plus and having some of the benefits of the XR and the 11, such as of course the big display, I think this is going to be a huge success, and I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people, which of course will benefit for Apple because they will subscribe to many services that Apple offers. So yes, as outlandish as this rumor is, I think this one is more plausible than the iPhone 8 Plus style iPhone. But tell me in the comments below, what do you think Apple's doing with the iPhone SE Plus? Do you think it's happening? Do you think it's not happening? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click that notification for the latest Apple news and rumors. Check out a video here in the icon above about the iPad mini 6 possibly not getting a redesign. And on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya, peeps.